Hello Internet, my name is the Golden Stalfos, and today I want to talk to you about the third and final game in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars Trilogy Pack, which is Mario Galaxy. I'm also going to talk about Galaxy 2 because it doesn't deserve its own video, but it's not in the collection. A lot of people are speculating it'll be as DLC or something, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they pulled a shitty move like that, but I think if, realistically, it should just be in the base bundle if they're going to include it at all. And it seems weird not to include it since it's just a level expansion for Galaxy, so, why not include it? Heck, why not just strip out the whole setup for Galaxy 2 and just put all of its worlds as bonus levels in Galaxy and just, leave it as post-game material or whatever. Because honestly, that would make way more sense. But, yeah. Okay. So let's get down to talking about it. First of all, this is a Wii title, so I have to go into some detail about the Wii, because it has its fair share of haters, and I don't think any of the hate is really warranted. Now, I can understand where it comes from, A lot of people who don't normally play video games started playing video games, and there were a lot of games made for those people instead of for us. And so people are bitter and angry and refuse to accept that anything good was ever made for this horrible, evil console that made other people happy, but not me. Wah. But if you're able to stop being a big baby for 10 seconds, you might realize that there are actually a ton of amazing Wii games. Metroid Prime 3, in fact, the Prime Trilogy collection is ported to, the Wii. Although I think I prefer to play the GameCube versions of the first two games because the weapon swapping is much smoother, and the visor swapping by extension. So yeah, there's that. Then there's two Zelda titles. Twilight Princess, the best Zelda game ever. Skyward Sword, the most mixed reviews Zelda game ever. Not necessarily bad, but also not necessarily good. It's very divisive. There's also Other M, which is pretty shit, but it's there. Honestly, I like all of the Wii Sports games, and Wii Play, Wii Sports Resort, all of those. They're very good. They control well. They have a lot of interesting minigames. There weren't really any good Mario parties for the Wii, because by then they had already switched over to the shitty version of Mario Party. I think, what was it, 7 was the last good one? Where they're on a cruise ship and it's dream themed, I think. No, the dream one was 5. The cruise ship is vacation themed, right? Something like that. But yeah, and that one was still on the GameCube. There was a good Mario Kart though, a great Smash Bros. Tons and tons of great games. There was a Bionicles game for anyone who's into Bionicles. And I know that sounds stupid because who the fuck is into Bionicles? But me, I am. They're fucking amazing, okay? And this game takes place in the story of the original timeline with the first set of Toa and everything. So is dope. Resident Evil 4 is at its best on the Wii. I mean, there's so many great titles. It's so amazing. I mean, it's not quite as good as the GameCube lineup, but it's pretty fucking close, man. Oh, Striker's Charge. That was another good one. Okay, sorry, I'm done. So, why do people hate the Wii, and why is it actually good? Okay, so one thing, people hate the Wii because it got really popular, and there's a lot of shovelware for it. And yeah, shovelware is bad, and you would not believe how awful some of these Wii games are. You know, the third party shovelware gets absurd. But I would argue it's no worse than any of the shit that was made for the Kinect, you know? Like, in fact, I would argue that the Kinect shit is way worse. And you know what? Even before motion controls, there was tons of shovelware out there. You know, there were licensed games, there were shitty party games, you know, there were poorly made, just messes all over. And that's fine, I guess. But, you know, no one played them and no one cared about them, except for, you know, retro reviewers nowadays who go back and make a video about how the 7-Up game was so radical, right? Yeah, you can meme all you want about that, but it's still not good. But the Wii got popular, and the shovelware games were everywhere, and they got popular. And the Wii has motion controls, which some people are scared of, I guess. I'm not sure why. So, first of all, let me say that the Wii actually didn't have motion controls when it was first released. That was added later with the Wii Motion Plus. What it had at first was infrared aiming, and you could track the movement of your Wiimote through that, the same way you could track the movement of a mouse by, you know, reading the infrared light that bounces off of the table when you move the mouse. Oh god, wow, it's the same fucking technology and it still works just as well. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez, how am I gonna survive? But yeah, the sensor bar reads an infrared signal that comes from the Wii's, from the Wiimote, and that infrared signal tells the Wiimote where it is. And there was some minimal motion sensing abilities in the Wiimote, but nothing really to write home about until the Motion Plus. And with the Motion Plus, you could not only get the infrared sensor information, but also the gyroscope sensor information. And so you could tell not only where the Wiimote was pointed, but also what position it was in, and how quickly it was moving, and things like that. And that was like really useful as a control mechanism, you know, because not only can you have a cursor pointed at the screen and do things like, you know, shoot star bits at the screen and push Mario around in air bubbles and, you know, things like that, but you can also have any number of controls mapped to motion. As far as I know, there were no games that really took advantage of this, but if you look at the Wii's button mapping on like Dolphin, you can see how you could theoretically map as many buttons to a Wiimote as you could to a keyboard, right? Like there's about 20 different inputs for motion, and you also have a mouse cursor. So like in theory, if the Wii was a little bit more powerful and connected to the internet, you could play Warcraft on it. No Warcraft player would do that, but a lot of casuals would have. And it would totally work, right? It has all the inputs you would need and then some. You know, so it's, yeah. And in addition to having a cursor, it has a joystick. So you get the benefits of being able to aim like you can with a mouse or a light gun at an arcade, but also you can move in 3D space with a joystick, you know, which is good. It doesn't have a second joystick for the camera, unfortunately, and so they had to create some workarounds for that. But honestly, it works pretty well most of the time. And in theory, if you wanted to make a game just like a PC game, you could, right? If you just wanted to have, say, Call of Duty, where wherever you, whenever you move the mouse, the screen moves and you always shoot dead center on the screen, you could do that if you wanted. Like, it would be a little bit more awkward because you'd have to flick the remote a ways in order to get like a full rotation or anything. But then you could also like map buttons to it. Like, if you're playing Call of Duty, you only need a button to shoot, a button to run, and a button to throw a grenade. So you could use the D-pad for directions, right? Press right to turn 90 degrees right, press left to turn 90 degrees left, press down to do a 180. And then do the finer controls with your joystick aiming. As far as I know, no games actually did that. The best shooter game I played on the Wii was probably Resident Evil 4, which had this pretty basic system where most of the time you just walk around, and then when you want to aim, you stand still and aim. And you could move pretty well in that game. You could do 180s and stuff. Next to that, I think probably Metroid Prime, which had a similar system, but you could like push the screen to the side by pointing your Wiimote at the side. But yeah, honestly, the Wiimote was like a really powerful tool for gaming, and a lot of people, like a lot of third-party developers, completely overlooked it because it's new and casual and shovelware. Ooh. But like, you could have done some amazing things with that tool, and it's kind of ridiculous that so many people hate it so much. But I've talked about that for too long now, so let's get down to talking about Mario Galaxy. What is it? How does it work? What does it do? Okay, so Super Mario Galaxy is the third entry into the 3D Mario Gammon Soiree, as Yahtzee coined it, and and it's the best, like by a lot. So the basic setup, it doesn't matter, Princess Peach is kidnapped by Bowser, go rescue, blah blah blah. But beyond that, you get a lot of interesting gameplay. So it took the concept that was in the last two games. In Mario 64, in Super Mario 64, there were these levels right before you got up to Bowser, where you had a bunch of disconnected geometry that you had to platform around in like this linear gauntlet until you got to Bowser. And then in Mario Sunshine, they had a similar thing where they took away your FLUDD and dropped you into this void with a bunch of blank geometry and tell you to get to the end. And then in Mario Galaxy, they were like, hey, what if all of our levels were just that concept taken to its natural limit and we played with gravity and stuff? And so they did. And it was incredible. So basically, the way the game works is there are various points throughout the game where gravity will shift. It's really impressive that they were able to do this, because if you know anything about how gravity is normally calculated in games, you know that moving it can fuck up everything. And honestly, it's just kind of impressive. So I think what they did is they created special objects that Mario will always move toward the closest of, and they put those objects as like microscopic points and put them inside of like all of your platforms and stuff, and all the black holes that suck you off into the abyss if you fall off. And by doing that, they can create multiple points of gravity in the same level and have you only be affected by one at a time. In theory, I think that's how it's done. I don't know. I haven't looked at the source code. I don't know how to do that. But however they did it, it's very impressive, and it creates a lot of fun gameplay. And there's a lot of time spent making sure that these levels are interesting to traverse and have some fun things going on. Let's see. This game doesn't have much to do besides platforming, though. Like, it brings back the long jump, thank God, and the high jump, thank God more, and adds in this new ability where you can shake the Wiimote to spin in midair or on the ground. And if you do it in midair, it stops your momentum and gives you like a little bit of wiggle room to adjust how you're falling so that you can hit your platform better. And this spin is multi-purpose, right? So you use it to adjust your jump, you use it to hit enemies, you use it to get yourself out of bubbles or any other thing that's holding Mario in place when you don't want him to. You can use it to activate your fire and ice flower abilities. You can use it when you're on ice to start skating, as opposed to just walking slowly, which is cool. And you can use it to pick up and throw random objects like Koopa shells and boxes. So all of that with one function. It's very integral to the game. And a lot of people were kind of annoyed that it was mapped to the motion waggle instead of a button. I mean, in reality, it could have been mapped to a button, you know. It could have been mapped to C or something like that. But the problem with the Wiimote is it's laid out kind of like a TV remote. And so in one hand, you hold the Wiimote with the IR sensor and everything. And you have A and B directly under your hand, right? B is underneath the remote and it's a trigger. And A is a regular button. It's directly under your hand. And above A is the D-pad. So you can really only access the down button easily without, shifting your grip forward. And way at the bottom end of the remote, you have 1 and 2, which you have to shift quite a ways to get to. You also have plus and minus right in the middle of the remote, just underneath A. But those are your pause buttons, and those even require a little bit of adjustment to get back over to. Probably what I would have done if I was designing the Wiimote is I would have put 3 buttons on the main controller, so that you could move your thumb between 2 of them and you'd still have B underneath like it is. And I don't think you could really do more than 2 up top. Maybe 3 if you put them in a triangle shape, but as is, the Wii has a pretty ergonomic design, and the A button is pretty much the perfect size. But I think if you wanted to, you could make it slightly smaller, make it like the size of the 1 and 2 buttons and put all 3 of them in that area in like a triangle shape or something. And that might have worked better as far as button maps like this go, but it wasn't done. So most games that want to use the joystick for movement can't really access all of the Wiimote's buttons, so they have to map some things to motion control. Which is fine, because, like I said, the motion controls have a lot of button map available, right? You read each individual motion separately, right? So a swing up is different from a swing to the left, which is different from, a circular motion, which is different from moving the Wiimote forward quickly, which is different from, uh, from like dropping it, right? Like, people who don't play these games like to criticize them for just, oh, you can just wiggle it however you want. It always works. But, like, it doesn't. You're just dumb. You're doing the equivalent of button mashing in a fighting game and saying, oh, look, this game is so easy. It is so stupid. Why is it made this way where you can just button mash? And, like, I don't know, man. Maybe stop being stupid and learn the controls. But, but because of this, you do have to wave your arm to activate this ability. And since this is the only ability that's mapped to motion in Mario Galaxy, they've mapped it to all of the motion inputs. So no matter which direction you swing, it will trigger, but you do have to swing your remote in some way. Now, that's fine in Mario Galaxy because, like I said, it's integral and it's well used, but you don't have to use it all the time. In fact, it has a cooldown. But since it has a cooldown and since you mostly use it when jumping, right? You don't get the fire and ice flower upgrades very often, and you're not in a bubble very often. And you almost never want to use it against enemies because, like, it's just kind of awkward to do. The timing is a little bit funky because it has some startup lag and you have to swing your arm in the middle of combat. So it's just like, you don't really want to use it all that much in those situations. So you don't. Mostly you just use it to correct your jumps or to get a little extra height or whatever. But in Galaxy 2, they fucked up. See, in Galaxy 2, you have the same controls, and it's essentially just a level expansion for Galaxy 1. But what they do is they add more power-ups, which you think might be cool. One of the main drawbacks, or one of the main things that I didn't like as much about Galaxy 1 is that it didn't have as many cool power-ups. I mean, you've got the bee suit and the boo suit and fire and ice flowers, and that's really it. And when you get down to it, the bee suit and the boo suit kind of do the same thing, but with slightly different drawbacks, yeah. So I was glad that there were new power-ups. The problem is, all of the new power-ups, without exception, every single one of them, has an ability that activates when you swing the remote. And you have to do this all the fucking time. Like, constantly. It's... And it just isn't good to be constantly doing that. It doesn't work. It's not as fun. And it should have been mapped to... It should definitely have been mapped to a button at that point. Definitely, without a doubt. So, yeah. But whatever. Anyway, I had a point. What was my point? Right. So, oh, did you hear that next snap? That was so good. So, Mario Galaxy is pretty fun to control. You have all the same movement options you did in the N64 game, but with better graphics and, better joysticks and like a more fleshed out world, and you also have the spin and some power-ups that weren't there before, and it's pretty good. There's a lot of great platforming sections, a lot of good challenges, puzzles. The only thing in Galaxy 1 that I don't like are the stages where it becomes Super Monkey Ball, because I don't know, I never really cared for Super Monkey Ball. It's just, like, whatever. And I mean, Super Monkey Ball is controlled by the gyroscopic position of your Wiimote, which, if you didn't have motion control or motion plus when you first got it, wasn't always as good as it should have been. Because, like I said, it didn't quite have all the tech that it needed to make that fully realized. But also just, it's a little bit too sensitive to your position. Like, you only have to tilt forward like 2 degrees to start sprinting, and it's... But whatever. That's the only real problem, and there aren't that many of them. And, you can beat the game without playing any of them, really. So, it's fine. There are... the only other thing that I have any problem with in Galaxy is the comet challenges. I know a lot of people will love those challenges the most, but to me, they always seemed like overly difficult. But maybe that's just because I'm bad at platformers, But yeah, I really loved basically everything else about the game. I love the way you unlock new worlds. I loved the Luigi levels that you can unlock at the end. I loved finding Luigi in a bunch of different places throughout the game to get the special green stars in the first place. I love how every time you boot up the game and talk to this messenger toad, you get 5 1-ups just for the fuck of it. Because, we're not here to make you die all the time. I don't know why we even have a 1-up system. We just, go play the game. There's 7 more 1-ups you can collect just by running around the overworld. You get one every time you get 100 star bits. You just never run out of lives, which is fine. There's no reason to have a game over live system in... It's stupid. Galaxy 2 forgot that lesson and made the 1-ups much more stingy, even though the levels are harder than anything in Galaxy 1 because it's, stuff that was built after as a ramp up in challenge from Galaxy 1. And so, the levels are harder, but you have less access to 1-ups and stuff, and so you just, die a lot more. I actually got game overs in Galaxy 2, and that never happened in Galaxy 1. And it should never happen in any game because it's a stupid system. It's not fun. It doesn't do anything. That's why basically everyone switched to the Dark Souls life system, where you respawn infinitely, but you lose some shit and have to go get it back or something, That doesn't work as well in level-based games, but still. Both of these games still feature the boot out system, which is annoying. I don't like it, but whatever. It is what it is, I guess. At this point, you just kind of have to accept it. I mean, they end up scrapping that for Odyssey, but Odyssey's kind of terrible. And in all of these games, right, all the games I've mentioned, there's 120-ish collectibles, right? 120-ish stars. I think Galaxy has a few more, because there's some secret bonus stars and stuff like that at the end of the game. But that's it, It's around the realm of 130, maybe as high as 150, I can't remember, but that's it, right? Whereas Mario Odyssey has 900 moons, right? They can't be meaningful at that point, right? It has as many moons as there are Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild, and who bothered to collect all the Korok seeds, right? Who gives a shit? You know, they're just there, fucking everywhere. They're not important. They don't mean anything. You're not gonna use them all. Just get a handful when you feel like it and leave the rest of them. You know? So while Odyssey did skip the boot out system, they also made their, collectibles completely fucking worthless. So who cares? And like Odyssey has more padding than any of the other games because one, it has more repeated moons, or stars or whatever than any previous game does, and two, it has an endless amount of shit hidden in the post game. Like after you beat the game, then you unlock the ability to get the other 80% of the moons. Congratulations. Suck a dick. And like, I don't know, man. I'll take the boot out system over that, honestly. Whatever. That's just me, I guess. Odyssey does have some good stuff going for it. There's a lot of fun, unique gameplay with the captures and stuff like that, but it's So yeah, Galaxy is great. Galaxy 2, like, the levels are harder, and they add Yoshi, and they add some new power-ups, but, like, ultimately it feels like a worse game, like, dramatically worse, partially because, like, I think most of it, actually, is because of the way they use all this new stuff, right? Like, Yoshi works the way he always has, where, like, you get hit once and then he runs off into the void, and, like, that doesn't really work, like that's not functional in a 3D world game where there's no walls anywhere and you're expected to run along ledges and shit. Like anytime you get hit, Yoshi's gone and you have to restart the stage because you need him for the challenge. You literally can't complete the thing without Yoshi's ability to eat the hot pepper, And so it's just dumb. And also, because they wanted to make the game harder, they also made the timing on things a lot shorter. Like, in Galaxy, there are these rooms where you go in and there's like a line of coins or music notes or something, and you collect all of them in a short time period as the music plays, and then you get a reward. And in Galaxy 1, I could always get all of those, right? There was always just enough time to do it. And in Galaxy 2, I always feel like it stops just a half second sooner than it should, and getting all of them requires a lot of attempts. And it's ridiculous. They just cut the timing down way too tight to the point where you have to be like beyond perfect to even get it. And it feels like they did that to everything in the game. All of the ledges, like the first level where you're introduced to Yoshi's ability to sprint with the red pepper, right? The very first level, you're instructed to sprint up the side of this hill that you otherwise couldn't climb. And it has like 12 different obstacles on it. There's enemies, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's 3 different paths you can take, and only one of them is the correct one. And even if you go perfectly, and you go directly through and hit the correct path, your red pepper ability will expire within like 1 second of you reaching the platform, right? And so like There is no room for error whatsoever. Even though this is the very first time you've ever seen the ability, and the very first time you've ever had to move at these speeds, and you can't control your rate of movement at all, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, why? You know? Why'd you time it so that it would be so fucking tight? Like, even with the most direct, perfect motion, I can barely make it. And then right after that, you're sent to an even more ridiculous section before you can get a star, and you have to go up and down and around this whole curvy section. It's a fucking mess, man. You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous, honestly. And I don't know, man. I feel like they could have chilled out a little bit and let you, you know, have another second to do the thing, you know? Because here's the thing. Difficulty doesn't come from tight timing, right? Like I've talked about difficulty in other videos, and I'll talk about it again, I'm sure. But a lot of people think it's hard when you die a lot. But it's not necessarily true, right? Like, you die a lot in Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild isn't hard. There's nothing difficult about it. There's nothing interesting about the enemy's movements, or, you know, no strategies you have to, you know, it's just, they fucked up the damage ratios in the early part of the game because they were too worried about the late part of the game. And they couldn't design enough enemies to fill both parts, so they just threw a bunch of one-shot enemies at you in the early half and call it a challenge. It's not. It's just bad game design. But you know, if you run up to a challenge, right, and you see it, you're like, oh, okay, this is what I have to do, and you know what it is you have to do, and you can perfectly execute it, but there's a time limit, and the timer runs out just before you finish doing the thing. Even if you were directly on course, you were gonna complete the thing, right? But you took just a half second too long, so you fail, die, reset. That's not difficult. That's just annoying, you know? And every single level in Galaxy 2 felt like that to me. You know, especially the levels where you have to use the power-ups, where you have to shake your Wiimote over and over again. Oh, I should mention earlier I listed off the power-ups in Galaxy 1, and I left some out. There's the spring power-up, and I think there might be one more. I can't remember. But yeah, in Galaxy 2, you get a bunch of new power-ups. There's one where you turn into a ball. There's, some more emphasis on the Fire Flower thing. There's a couple of different, like, other things. You know, there's a hat. There's a cloud power. There's a... You know, but they're all stupid. They all require you to do the spin thing in the middle of other shit just to activate your power, and it sucks. You know, it just sucks. And between those two things, between the, you know, the absurdly tight timing and, you know, the increase in the, like, smallness of the areas you have to platform on and things like that, and the fact that you have to constantly use the spin move, which, you know, hurts your wrist after a while, it's just a worse game overall. And the way it's broken up into levels where you can only access like 3 or 4 worlds at a time, and there's really no point in going back and forth or anything like that, you know. It's and I just keep going on it is the same shit. It's an expansion of the same shit, but it's worse in every way somehow. Like, every little thing they could have fucked up to make the formula slightly less functional, they did. And it's astonishing, honestly. I don't know how else to put it, you know? So yeah, that is Galaxy and Galaxy 2. I think Galaxy 1 is the best in the 3D Mario series, even including Odyssey and all that. And I think Galaxy 2 is worse than the N64 game, but not as bad as Sunshine. So, yeah, I really hate Sunshine, honestly. It's just not as good as the others. It just doesn't compare. Um, so, yeah, that's my opinion on Mario Galaxy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next live. Laters. Okay, end card time. I'm supposed to tell you to like, comment, subscribe, all that stupid YouTube shit. There's a bell thingy, whatever. I have all the social media stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Mostly I use Facebook and Twitter to tell you about my Twitch and YouTube uploads. I've got a Patreon, but Patreon is one of those things where people who can afford to throw away money give money to people who can't. And so if you can't afford to throw away money, then you shouldn't be doing that. And if you can afford to throw away money, consider charities. There's a pandemic, there's global warming, there's millions of people in the world who don't have toilets, which is just awful. So I've linked a few charities in the description down below in case you're interested in that. And if you can't donate money to a charity, consider donating some of your time, because that's also very useful. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.